We have some breaking news. Representative Jim Jordan will not seek a vote on Thursday for a third try at the speakership. This after it became evident he does not have enough support from his colleagues in the chamber. Now, according to Punchbowl's Jake Sherman, he will back Patrick McHenry as an interim speaker until January. McCarthy, McHenry, Jordan, Cole, and Emmer met this morning, and the conference is starting right now.
Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi had this to say after Jordan failed to secure votes during the second try.
Just curious, what is your reaction to another failed speaker vote with the Republicans?
Well, I think it was a triumph for democracy in our country that an insurrection was rejected by the Republicans again as their candidate for speaker. We've always wished the winning party well as they choose their leader. I've never, in the decades that I've been here, when we've had a speaker's race on our side or their side, we've always respected each other's judgment. But today and yesterday, that was an assault on our democracy, as Jim Jordan assaulted our democracy on January 6th.
Have you as a conference at all discussed expanding Speaker Pro Tem McHenry's
You'll have
powers?
to talk to Hakeem about that. He's our leader and he speaks for us.
But you've just curious.
And here's President Biden reacting to Jordan's failed attempt yesterday.
Do you have a view of Jim Jordan's current predicament and unable to secure the speakership?
I ache for him. No. Zero. None.
Mr. President?
In case you couldn't
right.
hear that, he said, I ache for him. It was kind of funny.
he's a little life left in the old guy yet. Yeah, for sure.
Every now and then he has good comic timing when he's asked to respond to a Republican plight.
Look, Biden, the question of whether Biden has riz has never been up for debate. He has a certain je ne sais quoi with the public, but, you know, we also have seen him lash out, and he's a complex guy. Let's talk about what's going on here. Democrats are obviously going with the line that Jim Jordan was not someone they could get behind to the extent that they were ever willing to make any kind of compromises, because fundamentally he was an insurrectionist, as they call it.
I mean, did
he was supportive.
Jordan smash the windows and go through the?
No,
seems to be
what they're referring to is that he was a very vocal supporter of Donald Trump's election lies immediately after, at a time when most Republicans were frankly kind of shaken and cowed and silent immediately after 1-6, and making all kind of statements that were subsequently retracted about how we've got to protect our democracy and this was inappropriate and the people in the Capitol broke the law and were wrong. A lot of that got erased in the revisionist history of the next few months when they realized that Trump was still kicking as a viable political quantity. But he was with Trump, unwavering from the jump. And so that's why they're characterizing him a little bit differently than some of the other Republicans in the caucus. This question that was put to Nancy Pelosi, which she declined to answer because she, I guess, is wanting to respect Hakeem Jeffries' role as speaker now, as minority leader, rather, is whether or not the interim speaker, Patrick McHenry, should have his powers expanded so that they can do the business, pass billions of dollars of aid to Israel and Ukraine and whatever else, just temporarily expanding it into November 17th, when the government will either shut down or they'll vote for a permanent speaker.
Yeah.
And it seems like the Democrats have said they were open to it, but they need more. Hakeem Jeffries has said they need more concessions. They're trying to get something out of an agreement to do that.
It sounds like Patrick McHenry is getting the speaker job the same way I got the host of Rising job, by just sticking around while everyone else quit or was fired.
I think that's an interesting point, because it raises the fact that people don't really know much about him. Yeah. You were just Googling him and saying that there was a photo accompanying an article about him.
I couldn't tell. They said, who is Patrick McHenry? And I was looking at the photo and I'm like, I'm 70% sure I know which one of these people he is.
It's like when you're online dating and you see someone with a picture with all of their friends and you're trying to figure out which is the one you're trying to
Not an experience I've had. I don't know about that.
Long married man. Yeah, married long before the days of the internet. So McHenry is the chairman of the Financial Services Committee. Apparently, he is well respected. This is from an op-ed in the Washington Post urging Democrats to make some kind of compromise to expand his powers. Respected by all factions of the GOP conference. They say the bow tie wearing 47-year-old has shown respect for the institution and increasing seriousness since being elected back in 2004 when he was just 29 years old. And crucially, the Washington Post editorial board says he voted to accept the results of the 2020 election when the majority of House Republicans sought to disenfranchise the people of Arizona and Pennsylvania.
You know, it's interesting. You were picking at this thread. I want to return to it. Jim Jordan's ironclad support for Trump at the 1/6 moment. You know, he really backed Trump. Trump supported Jim Jordan for Speaker, but not enough to make him Speaker. Trump hasn't been calling representatives to get them to change their mind and vote for Jordan, has he?
Look,
Trump hasn't been, he has tremendous sway. Everyone's afraid to cross him. Did he call anyone and say, if you don't vote for Jim Jordan tomorrow, I will campaign against you in your district? He didn't do any of that. So my point is, you can back Trump and it can be good for you, but does Trump reward that backing with anything close to what it's worth?
I do think in the context of these speaker votes, and given how close the split is in the House, at some point when it's 4 or 5 people that can make or break, I am less inclined to be interested or to put too much weight on the emphasis that any one person can have. Because even if you're the most persuasive person in the world, even if your political power is very mighty, and you can convince 9 out of 10 people to do what you say, at a certain point there's like human free will, and some people who are just willing to play that game of chicken and drive off the cliff like Thelma and Louise style, and you just can't reason with. It's
kind of like how on all the or many of the votes that are whatever everyone agrees, like there's still always one person who votes against it, like 1 or 2 votes in the Senate or the House. In this situation, that's all it takes. Yeah, that's literally all it takes.
And it has been the case. At first, it was like the Freedom Caucus people that were obviously the McH cohort that withheld the votes for Kevin McCarthy in the first instance back in January. But the cohort of who these holdouts have been a little slippery between if they are kind of more Trumpy people versus
the people not voting for Jordan are holdouts, in the non-Trump direction. They're holdouts of people who are mad. I mean, frankly, they don't want to reward the Matt Gaetz faction for what the Matt Gaetz faction did to McCarthy. That is really the root of them holding out. And because they already did that, because the Matt Gaetz faction already did that, there's nothing they can really compromise. We did the thing. They're mad. The other faction is mad they did that, and thinks they'll be rewarding the faction if they now let Jordan have the speakership. So that's why they're just saying flatly no. And then everyone else is not acceptable to the Gaetz faction. So there's just no compromise, nowhere to go.
Yeah. I will just raise again, Nancy Pelosi very smugly saying in that comment, couldn't be me. We never had any of those issues, is in some ways a very tacit indictment of all of the progressives who could have used this moment to really fight for the American people and chose not to. But it's not too late. There could be a scenario where some of these progressives who I think are now having the targets on their back because of their advocacy for Palestine and their criticism of Joe Biden's approach to that conflict could find some gains to trade across the aisle, depending if there really is a cohort of people who are willing to, let's say maybe because they want to hold up Ukraine aid, even if they do not really care about the Israel aid, get together and work something out on that. I think the fundamental problem with doing that is going to be that they all want to fund Israel.
Yeah, that seems likely. Well, we'll have to see how Patrick McHenry fares. I guess the hero we need, deserve, want, got, I don't know. We barely know what he looks like. More Rising right after this.